Brian Harmon, who played golf at Georgia, used some Kirby Smart quotes today to keep himself motivated to win the British Open. They call it the Open over there, but he was talking today after the tournament about how he needed to stay in the moment. He said, "I was a wreck last night. I've been a wreck the whole week. I kept thinking of something Kirby Smart said. I'm not going to be hunted. I'm going to hunt. I decided to get out and try to take as much as control as I can." So Kirby's super aggressive catchphrases are paying off for people who are not even, playing football at Georgia. And I think that I think the best quote that Kirby's really ever had in my mind is a Billie Jean King quote, and he correctly plagiarized it from her, gave her credit, but pressure is a privilege. I mean, this program at Georgia has had so much pressure over the last certainly 30 games, but before that too. I mean, there've been a lot of games. It seems like Georgia's really rolled through the last two seasons, and in many ways they have. I mean, there's been so many games that just weren't, tight or whatever. But you didn't know that going into the Clemson game or the LSU game or Arkansas or even Kentucky in 2021. There was no certainty that Georgia would just blitz Michigan the way they did. I think there's been a lot more pressure than people realize, and I think that I think personally pressure as a privilege is the correct way in which you should look at your circumstances if you are in a big moment. And I definitely criticized the notion that Kirby was, or the comment that Kirby made at the beginning of his time at Georgia, which was, "Why not us?" It should be Georgia. I mean, maybe it should not be Georgia in 2016, but after that it should be. And I think even for him it took a moment or two to grasp and get a firm grasp on just how good or big a deal Georgia is. Make sure you're grasping our 2023 preview. It comes with Double Dogs, which is our look at the 2022 National Championship. It's got stories and photos you're not going to read anywhere else. I remember talking to Stetson Bennett. I haven't flipped to the Kentucky page in a long, long time. And just before we started our interview, Stetson and I were talking, and I told him that was as cold a game as I could ever remember. And he said it was the coldest he remembered. It wasn't the worst. He said the 2019 Kentucky game, which Georgia won 21-0 or something like that. He thought that was worse because of the rain. But I don't think there was one that was worse in terms of cold. That was bitter. A bitter, bitter cold. But anyway, pick up Double Dogs today. And it's coming from our friends at Red Zone. That's the only other place you can get it. But anyway, the link is down below. You can pick them both up. I will run out of the previews here at some point. So make sure you're grabbing all of it while you can. But I think, when you look at Hartman, what he did, he just, I mean, he didn't have a lot of bogeys. And I don't think he was over par once the whole tournament. 67, 65, 69, and 70. It was just nasty out there on Sunday. So, we will not be hunted was something that Kirby talked about in 2022. And, of course, now he's saying better never rests. This is a Georgia team that can win the national championship in 2023. We don't know what the future holds for this program. I'm not putting limits on it because I am a keen observer of this league, this moment in time in college football. Right now, there's no one in Georgia's universe in terms of the winning and the recruiting, maybe with the exception of Alabama and Ohio State, but they've not been able to stop Georgia lately, those two teams. And I'm not And I think things will change here. Ohio State has to win the national championship. Until they do that, they're going to have the same sort of problem that Georgia's had over time themselves, which is people doubt you consistently until you win it. But I think for Georgia, I think there's so much good that has come from Kirby's time at Georgia, and this notion that Georgia will be the hunters. That is not the way things started. That is not the way things started at Georgia. I don't know if y'all remember that or not or what, but he had a lot of discussion about why can't it be us, and the truth was that programs like Georgia should win in a big way. Texas, Florida, SC, they should, and I don't think we've seen the end of Georgia's winning ways. But I want to get back to pressure as a privilege because I think, when you think about Billie Jean King, and I played tennis in college, I played basketball and tennis in college, and so I know Billie Jean King and her world well, and what she did for women in tennis and just women generally speaking, that was a lot of pressure. The match with Bobby Riggs, I'm not sure there was a bigger moment in sports for women than that tennis match. And she was way better than he was. But the pressure was all on her, you know? And she came out and performed. But it wasn't just that. I mean, Billie Jean King was just a winner and constantly won. And she was also forming what would become the Virginia Slims Tour, the women's, the WTA, the Women's Tennis Association now. All of that was going on. There was a tremendous amount of pressure for her at all times. And whenever she did not win or perform, of course, her critics were ready to pounce. That's not different than what Georgia's experiencing right now. I mean, I've seen this at Alabama. I've seen it at Clemson, Florida State over the years. Whenever Miami, whenever you really win, you're going to have people who are going to criticize you. There are always going to be critics. There's room for critics in the world. We have to have them. I mean, certainly, Kirby Smart is not perfect, but we have to have critics, and sometimes they go overboard. But I can assure you, the next time Georgia loses a football game, the critics will be out and about. I don't know when that will be, but that's a part of this. That is part of the pressure that becomes a privilege. I mean, Chase Elliott has regurgitated that line straight from Kirby, and now you've got championship golfers. I mean, I think the Masters is the biggest golf tournament in the world, but there's no older tournament than the Open, and if there's anything that comes close to matching the Masters, it is the U.S. Open to Wimbledon for in tennis vernacular. But the other thing about golf is it's a lot like tennis, except the ball isn't coming flying back at you. It's an individual sport. You have to fight yourself often to get it right. People say, well, you're playing the conditions. I mean, okay, but the difference, I think, between golf and everything else is the ball is not moving. I mean, every other sport, the ball moves. We can't say that about golf, but it's a tremendously difficult sport. And the mindset of being the hunter, I don't know how long Georgia can go with that one. It is certainly a mindset, but there's no doubt that Georgia is at the top of the college football game. And they probably will be at the top in 2023, no matter if they win the national championship or not. You don't easily get dislodged when you've done what they did these last 30 games. But there are going to be a lot of people coming at them, so they've got to be aggressive too. LSU is building, Brian Kelly's building a program. He went to LSU for a reason. Nick is not done at Alabama. We'll see what happens with Ryan Day at Ohio State and Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Jim Harbaugh needs to quit playing footsie with everybody. What's going to happen in the ACC with Florida State and Clemson. And then SC as well out west. They'll eventually have to make the move to the Big Ten, but it's right there for Georgia to take it and be the best program in college football history. It's not going to be easy to do that. But this machine has been built, and I would say there's not a lot standing in its way. There is plenty standing in its way. There are some really good programs out there. I just don't know if they're better than Georgia right now. And complacency is a problem. It is natural to take a nap. We're going to see if these dogs do that in 2023.